Go ahead, Eric.
Hey, Bruce, you've had a full week to see Craig Smith here in person with Charlie and Nick. What have you thought of him on the ice and maybe off the ice too?
Uh, real hard worker, condition, real good pro. Off ice, very attentive in the meetings. Everywhere you go, you sort of run into some different systems and details. So he wants to make sure he gets up to speed there. But on the ice, work ethic, second, third effort guy on the puck. Willing to shoot, willing to go to the net. He had some nice low to high plays the other day in the scrimmage when he had nothing else behind the goal line, made it quick. So said plays with a lot of pace. I think he's going to has complement those guys and will continue to. It can be a big line, a line with pace, a line that's hard to play against, some physicality. So right now we like what we've seen, all three of them, Coyle and Ritchie. And Smith scored in this league. So that's the other thing that we can expect to get down the road as well. So some consistent production out of that third line is what we're anticipating, and they haven't shown me any different up to this point.
Thanks, Eric. We'll go next to Jimmy Murphy. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Hey, Coach, how you doing?
Good, Jimmy.
I'm not sure you were on the ice, so I'm not sure if you heard what happened with Dallas and Columbus with COVID. Their seasons openers have been postponed. Well, Dallas's. And I'm just wondering, you guys, everything went so smoothly in the bubble, obviously, but obviously the season now and traveling, and they haven't even traveled yet, it's going to be a different animal. How much are you trying to look ahead and maybe put contingency plans in place and deal with that?
Well, I mean, I'm sure that's been discussed through the GMs that if enough players or personnel were to test positive, what are the options to the team? Do you have to play no matter what? I can't see games being forfeited. I would assume you would look to reschedule down the road, and it's a compressed schedule as is, so that is going to be a challenge. But sounds like Dallas has done that. But again, as you said, I was on the ice. I just heard it, so I don't know the parameters of each. I don't know if Columbus got pushed back, but I think for us in the bubble, once you were in there, it was going to be difficult to test positive because everyone in there was negative. So you'd basically have to, bust out to, or someone would have to slip through the cracks, I guess, getting in there. But I think they did a real good job with that. This is different. I mean, for example, me, I have young kids that do partial remote schooling. They're involved in some hockey that Massachusetts allows them to continue to play. They're being very safe and wearing masks, but who knows? Like anything could happen. So it's going to be different. And then there's players in that situation. Obviously, Bergie has kids, John Moore has kids, etc. Kretsch, Tuca. So you just got to be extra careful for the next. Well, I guess it could be as much as 6 months, unless there is a vaccine situation that allows you to open up a little bit. But for us, that's the message to the guys: is a little bit of self-discipline to stay out of or limit situations that would allow you to be in contact with people you don't know, and be in indoor spaces that are crowded. So. But again, you can be as vigilant as you want, and sometimes your kids might bring it home, and I mean, what are you going to tell a person that right? That's for your family. So that's the challenge in front of us. It was a challenge in front of baseball and football as well, and now basketball again when you've not in a bubble. So that's it. That's all you can do, and let's keep our fingers crossed that our players and our coaches and anybody in hockey ops does the right thing. And then gets a little bit lucky, because sometimes you do the right things and you can still contract the virus. So that's the message to the players. And then where it goes from there, if we do have a situation like Dallas, Jimmy, that would be Donnie would be able to answer that better. Like what would transpire next, how you'd reschedule games, or how you deal with that issue if you weren't able to play.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Can I just ask one quick follow-up? Oh,
Yeah.
Could I ask one quick follow-up? Just in terms of the taxi squad, I know in the playoffs, you're always telling the Black Aces to be ready no matter what, but is it even more so now with these guys on the taxi squad that, like, hey, guys, you're going to get called on eventually, probably?
Yeah, so it's a little more of an opportunity because of it's not just injury now, right? I mean, that's what it was before. Or if you didn't like your lineup in the playoffs and they weren't playing well, you might dip into that. But if you're not playing well in the playoffs, you're out. So they weren't going to get a chance. There would be a very limited chance anyway. Now you could be not playing well for a stretch and just decide to make some changes and wheel them in. So that there's a bigger opportunity there. But yes, with if a couple of guys test positive and you're talking about a 14-day quarantine, I mean, there's an opportunity for, if your roster is 21 or 22, you're probably using those extra guys that have been with you, but your taxi squad becomes much more valuable. And we'll see how that plays out. It's a bit of an unknown, but I got to believe it's going to happen to some teams where they're going to need to dip into that. And that the guys are going to have to be ready. So they have to take care of themselves as well. They have to consider themselves exactly like the 20 to 23 man roster. And they have to be careful in how they interact. They can't just say, well, I'm just here to practice and no chance to get in the lineup. It's not the case at all. So we'll make that message clear to them as well. And sometimes that's your opportunity. I bet there will be at some point this year a guy that comes off the taxi squad that maybe, people don't know, or the teams, thought was farther away. They get in the lineup and they may never come out. And it's an opportunity for them to sort of make their way. So that's the opportunity in front of them. And that's kind of the message we'll talk about with those guys as well, that there's no guarantee that you would come out of the lineup if someone were to miss 5 or 6 games and you take advantage of your situation. You may, like I said, earn yourself a spot. So you've got to look at it that way as well.
Thanks, Jimmy. We'll next to Steve Conroy.
Hey, Bruce, how you doing?
Good, Steve.
I imagine if you look at the overall roster with your forwards, it probably fits best to put Jake back with David. But did you examine, why that occasionally went stale last year, and what needs to be done to get it back to where it was the first 2 years of Jake's career?
Well, I think the first 2 years there were bouts of inconsistency as well. We look at, Krejci's been in the league a long time. He's a pretty consistent guy. And we know that putting young guys beside him, there are going to be some ups and downs. It's just the life in the NHL. We expect Jake now to be more of a guy that we rely on every day. He's been in the league. Last year, you had asked this question the other day about some of the older guys. Maybe the contract year affected him last year. That's entirely possible when you're younger. But he signed a new deal. We believe in him. And I hope that now he recognizes he needs to be more of a consistent performer. He might not score every night or make plays. He's going to have some off nights, but he has to recognize that, hey, I'm a Boston Bruin that is been in the league and they're relying on me to be consistent. I'm not a first year guy anymore. And we've talked about that with a number of our middle level players. If we're going to take the next step, that's the ask of them. Be better pros, be more consistent. I would put Jake in that bucket of players. And so that's the expectation, and that's the message that we'll try to get across to him. So that's one of the reasons we're going back to it. We're going to try to sort of push away what happened last year and focus on the positives of when they played well together. They will have a consistent right wing as well, Steve. We're hoping that Andre Kasha fits in there, on a permanent basis. Now, I've been known to shuffle my lines. I'm sure that will happen from time to time, but I'm hoping that's more out of just giving the guys a spark one night. Maybe a guy's having a good night. You want to get him a few extra shifts, not in hopes of searching for, the next right winger for David Krejci. We're hoping that Cash is the guy. We're seeing some good scrimmages out of them now, some chemistry, fresh start, so to speak. We like what we've seen so far. So we've talked about that with Smith and Coyle, and the Ritchie line looks good. We know Pasta plays excellent with Bergen and has played very well with Krejci too. So we see a much more solidified top six, and Jake is part of that, but he just has to do his part, go out, give us a solid, 15 to 18 minutes every night, be consistent. And I think that, he's capable of that, should be able to give us that. And that's it. Again, the expectation.
Thanks. And could I just have one different question? You flipped Lozon and Zaboral today. Where do you feel about where your young guys are right now on the back end?
Well, some of the lineup today was due to we were going to have special teams power play built in. So what we did is we put all the power play guys on one side because we were thinking of maybe mixing like Charlie Coyle will sometimes play with the first group. Sometimes he'll go out with the second group because we missed the center ice face-off component there, or it's late in the power play. We want a centerman when their team comes out of the box. So that was by design today to put, and Zaboral is part of the power play more than a penalty killer, and he got a few looks there. And Lozon is going to be counted on to kill penalties. So we kind of put the penalty killers on one side, with the exception of Brandon Carlo, because we know what he can do on the penalty kill. So he got a bit of a reprieve there to look at, get Kevan Miller back up to speed there, Lozon, Moore and Clifton, and when they're in the lineup, we'll do that. So that was the thinking today with some of the roster constructions, like Jack Stadnika. We moved him away from Berge and Marsh because we feel if he's in our lineup that he might have a better opportunity to get his extra minutes on the penalty kill. He did that very well in Providence last year, scored 7 shorties. So I didn't want people to read too much out of the 5-on-5 stuff today, that the sweater colors were more for the PK. Now, as for those younger guys, I think Lozon is trying to do a little bit too much in terms of closing out there instead of letting the play come to him. All right, that's a bit of Jeremy, who he is. He's a high energy guy. He likes to, to get in people's faces. He just has to find the appropriate times to do that. So that was the thinking behind there. I thought Zaboral moved the puck well, 5-on-5. Power play had a few shifts in there where, he may be a complimentary guy out there. He can really shoot the puck. In Providence, he didn't get as many points probably on the power play as we thought he might coming out of junior hockey. That part of his game probably isn't quite there yet. So we want him to be more of a 5-on-5 puck mover, and we'll mix him in there. So I thought Vac jumped up the ice well. He's another guy that will be on the penalty kill before the power play here as well. So that's why he was with the black sweater again as well. So he may get a look with McAvoy down the road here too, because I think there's an opportunity for him to be a shutdown guy as much as Lozon. It's just Jeremy's ahead of him in terms of games played. So that's where I'm at with those younger guys. I hope that answers your question. But the Lozon with Miller was as much to have a look at a PK pair and maybe a late in the game type to look as well. So there's always a little bit more than what meets the eye that goes into those decisions.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
We'll go next to Fluto Shinzawa.
Bruce, on the right side on the D, it's been so long for Kevan since he's played, but boy, he looks like he's moving well. And you also have Connor there too. I'm wondering how you see that competition there between Connor and Kevan playing out so far.
Well, I think Kevan has the upper hand in terms of experience. He has that bite, that obviously we've talked about. We lost that, with Z. So Kevan can give us some of that. We knew going in that he felt better. Our medical team thought that he was farther ahead than where he's been in the past in terms of recovering from that injury, and should be up to speed when the season started. He just needed to get out and get reps, get playing, be back in the live hockey. So we're real happy about his progression this week. I mean, it's been 3 practices, 2 scrimmages, and he looks great. And obviously his body is recovering well and handling it well. So that's step 1 for him. And if he can do that, then he has the upper hand on Clifton. And Cliffy then would become more of a depth guy on the right side, or he could work his way into the left side mix if he's able to handle that and be ahead of some of those younger guys. So we like the way Cliffy plays. We feel real good about our right side, and there may be times that Kevan can't handle a complete 56 game workload coming back off not playing for a while, and that's where Cliffy could go in. So it's a good problem to have, but I think where we're coming from is if Kevan's healthy and able and giving us that bite and moving around the ice and defending well and killing penalties, that's a big plus for this lineup. And being able to partner with one of the young left sticks, if that's the way it turns out, like a Zaboral or Lozon or a Vacanine. And he did a great job with Grizz being a mentor. Now, it's a lot to ask when you haven't played in a year to all of a sudden look after somebody else, but that's another reason why we like him in there, that, he can give us that element once he starts to feel comfortable with his game.
We have time for two more. We'll go to Matt Porter and then Dan Roach.
Bruce, a lot of special teams work today, obviously, from retrievals, breakouts, entries, in zone stuff. You had some new faces on pretty much every unit, or guys you're trying to work in there. What stands out to you right now? What did you like? What do you think you need to work a little bit more on in the next few days?
Well, it's early to start being able to say I love this and I hate this type of thing in terms of specific details. I like our pace. I thought we were much more competitive today on pucks. A couple of big hits, so a little more just regular season of opposition hockey plays tonight, where you're going against a guy that that wants to win pucks and maybe blow you up or go through you. So we saw a little more of that. We don't want to be running each other from behind. We don't want cheap shots and hits, but we did see a little more contact so that's good. We got to start prepping for that. That's what we're going to see next Thursday with no exhibition games. That's always difficult. I think every team's going to go through a little bit of that early on, where they're still stuck in summer hockey mode a little bit, where they're fishing for pucks and not quite aware. So I was glad to see that today without any casualties. As for the power play, we had some good in zone shifts, working on our entries. I liked some of our outside speed entries with both groups. So that was good part of the power play. We made a few plays, missed some empty nets. Richie made a nice play. I think it was to Bergie backdoor. So Charlie McAvoy had a good look, a great save. Again, those are just a couple of examples, but I thought we moved the puck around in zone and looked like crisp for our first look at the power play. The kill seemed to be very competitive down there. They wanted to get their clears. They had some good sticks in the lane. Looking at a Jack Studnicka, I thought he did a good job. Anders Bjork's going to kill this year. We lost Nordy, who was a good part of our kill. Someone has to fill those minutes. So I thought he did a nice job as well. So those are some of the little things we like today, Matt. Again, the coaches are in there now. I'm going to get in there and we're going to look at it, a little closer on the video, see where we can clean a few things up. But, all in all, I like the competitiveness. 4-on-4, some good ozone shifts. The overtime, again, some game situational things that you don't get a lot of time to practice. So we got to look at that. Even the shootout, it's step one of, trying to identify guys that give us the best chance to win. So a little bit of everything today in that regard, and still worked on some 5-on-5. So which I liked. I liked our 5-on-5 again because of the competitiveness part to it, and guys were a little more engaged and dialed in today in terms of competing for pucks, and that's what we're going to need going forward.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Final question, Dan Roach, go ahead.
Hi, Bruce. Just to kind of follow up what Murph was asking, as you guys get ready to go on the road, we've seen in the Boston sports, area, Brad Stevens will have 3 players out tonight. The players also said how important Bill Belichick was to them on the Patriots to get through the COVID issues. And Ron Renicky had his issues to deal with too, especially being on the road. What kind of things will you talk about with the players and their responsibilities to each other, especially as they take to the road for the first time in the whole pandemic?
Yeah, well, that will be a conversation similar to what I said earlier, that it's going to have to be some self-discipline. There are parameters in place through the National Hockey League about staying in the hotel, we are not allowed to be in restaurants on the road. That's just part of the agreement that the protocols were put in place, and players need to adhere to that. It's not an option. So we'll have to remind them. I mean, it's difficult to follow a player around down and make sure he doesn't, because clearly you have your freedom to walk, get out on the road, get fresh air, etc., go for a jog or whatever the case may be. Obviously not jogging this time of year. Sorry, that's probably a bad analogy, but just get out and walking around, getting some fresh air is fine. But being indoors is a no-no, and guys have to recognize that they need to be able to ask if they forgot something. They're on the road and they're like, oh, I got to run around, go here and go there to pick up something. They're gonna have to ask, and there'll be concierge services that you're going to need to use, and different things that are available to them. We're even limited with certain, restaurants that take out food. So there's some strict protocols in place, and and for good reason. That's just the way it is right now. To be able to get through the season and stay healthy, you have to adhere to them. And that'll be the message to the guys. And I hope our leadership group will, make sure that they're the ones that are being vocal with the guys about that, because it always means more coming from your own players. And that's a sacrifice you have to make to stay healthy so your team can compete at the highest level. So that's the ask, and let's hope our players are up for it.